Throughout history, royal families went to great lengths to protect their power, and one of the most unusual ways was by marrying within their own families. Cousins, uncles, distant relatives, all chosen to keep royal blood pure. But this desire for perfection often came at a hidden cost. Many royal women suffered health problems, mental struggles, and lives shaped by generations of close family marriages. Some became admired queens, others lived quietly behind palace walls, bound by strict family traditions. Tonight, we will explore 30 of the most inbred royal women you may never have learned about. Their lives were strange, haunting, and sometimes tragic, yet full of stories history rarely tells. Sit back, relax, and step into the hidden world of royal bloodlines, one story at a time. Number 1 on our list is Joanna of Castile, often remembered as Joanna the Mad. Born in 1479 to Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabella I of Castile, she grew up in one of Europe's most powerful royal families. From the start, her life was shaped by a tradition of marrying within the family to preserve royal bloodlines. Joanna married her first cousin, Philip the Handsome, in a union designed to strengthen the Habsburg influence across Europe. While politically strategic, such close family ties brought hidden consequences. Scholars believe that generations of intermarriage contributed to her mental health struggles, which would shadow her entire life. Though she held the title of queen, Joanna's authority was often ignored. She was confined by her father and later by her son, Charles V. Yet her story is more than tragedy. It is a glimpse into the hidden costs of royal inbreeding. Her life shows how the pursuit of pure bloodlines could shape destinies, affect health, and leave a mark on history that few realize existed. Number 2 on our list is Maria of Austria, a Habsburg princess whose life was shaped by centuries of carefully arranged family marriages. Born in 1528 to Emperor Charles V and Isabella of Portugal, Maria grew up in the heart of European royalty, where every union was designed to preserve power and influence. As was common in her family, Maria married her cousin, Maximilian II. This union, while politically strategic, carried the hidden costs of generations of inbreeding, subtle health and genetic consequences that were passed quietly from one generation to the next. Throughout her life, Maria balanced her duties as empress with the private challenges that came from her family's tightly interwoven lineage. Her children, many of whom also married within royal circles, would continue to carry the legacy of these carefully arranged bloodlines. Maria of Austria's story reminds us that behind the grandeur of crowns and palaces, there were often hidden struggles, mental and physical, that history rarely records, yet shaped the destinies of entire dynasties. Number 3 on our list is Margaret of Parma, a woman whose life was shaped by both privilege and the quiet burdens of royal bloodlines. Born in 1522 as the illegitimate daughter of Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, Margaret was soon recognized and raised within the Habsburg family, one of the most powerful and tightly intermarried dynasties in Europe. In keeping with family tradition, she married Alessandro de' Medici, linking influential Italian and Habsburg lines. These unions, designed to consolidate power and maintain pure royal blood, also carried the hidden consequences of generations of intermarriage, subtle health risks and pressures that shaped the lives of women like Margaret. Margaret went on to govern the Netherlands as regent, navigating a world of politics, rebellion, and diplomacy. Yet behind her authority and elegance, the legacy of her ancestry remained, a reminder that the very bloodlines that elevated her status also bore the weight of centuries of careful, and sometimes perilous, family unions. Her story quietly illustrates how royal women lived at the intersection of power and genetic heritage, their lives influenced by choices made long before they were born. Number 4 on our list is Anne of Brittany, one of the most fascinating figures in French and Breton history. Born in 1477, and was the daughter of Francis II, Duke of Brittany, and Margaret of Foy, and from the very beginning, her life was shaped by the politics of European royalty, where marriages were carefully arranged to preserve alliances and consolidate power. and herself married two successive French kings, Charles VIII and later Louis XII, ensuring that Brittany remained closely tied to the French crown. Behind these high-profile unions, however, lay a long history of royal inbreeding, as noble families sought to maintain their bloodlines within a small circle. These close family ties sometimes brought health challenges and subtle genetic consequences that few spoke of at the time. Despite the pressures of her lineage, and ruled with intelligence, charm, and determination, navigating a male-dominated court and leaving her mark on both France and Brittany, her life reminds us that even celebrated queens often carried the hidden weight of generations of carefully arranged marriages, and that the story of royal women is often one of both power and quiet struggle. Number 5 on our list is Maria Theresa of Austria, the only female ruler of the Habsburg dominions, and a woman whose life exemplifies the complexities of royal bloodlines. Born in 1717, Maria Theresa was the daughter of Emperor Charles VI, and from childhood, she was steeped in a world where marriages were carefully arranged to maintain power, influence, and the so-called purity of royal blood. She married Francis Stephen of Lorraine, her cousin, in a union that was typical among European royalty, designed to strengthen dynastic ties and consolidate power. While politically advantageous, these close family marriages carried genetic consequences, subtly affecting the health of their children and descendants. Maria Theresa ruled for 40 years with remarkable intelligence, determination, and a keen sense of diplomacy. Yet, behind her impressive reign lay the quiet legacy of her lineage. Her life and the lives of her children shaped, in part, by generations of tightly interwoven family bloodlines. Her story reminds us that even the most powerful women of history were not immune to the hidden influence of ancestry, and that the choices of generations past could leave a lasting mark on the course of entire dynasties. Number 6 on our list is Isabella of Spain, a princess whose life was deeply influenced by the tightly interwoven bloodlines of European royalty. Born in 1501, Isabella was the daughter of Philip the Handsome and Joanna of Castile, both members of the Habsburg dynasty, a family known for generations of cousin marriages designed to preserve royal power. From an early age, Isabella's path was shaped by these carefully arranged unions. Her family believed in keeping royal blood pure, a practice that carried hidden consequences, including health vulnerabilities and a legacy of inherited conditions. Such close familial ties were common among European royalty, quietly shaping lives in ways history books often overlook. Though Isabella's life was relatively short, her experiences reflect the broader reality faced by many royal women. The pressures of dynastic duty, the constraints of carefully orchestrated marriages, and the unseen costs of intermarriage. Her story reminds us that behind every crown and title, there was often a delicate balance between power and personal struggle, a balance dictated by generations of ancestry. Number 7 on our list is Eleanor of Austria, a woman whose life was intertwined with the most powerful royal families of Europe. Born in 1498 to Philip the Handsome and Joanna of Castile, Eleanor grew up in the heart of Habsburg power, a family known for generations of close marriages intended to preserve royal bloodlines. Eleanor herself married two kings of France, first Francis I and later, her cousin, Charles V's political allies arranged other unions for her, linking the Habsburg and French royal houses. These marriages strengthened political alliances, but also carried the subtle consequences of intermarriage, influencing health, fertility, and sometimes even the mental well-being of descendants. Despite the political weight placed upon her, Eleanor managed her role with grace and diplomacy. Yet behind her titles and the grandeur of court life lay the quiet legacy of her ancestry, a reminder that royal bloodlines were as much a burden as they were a privilege. Her story illustrates how generations of carefully arranged marriages shaped not just the politics of Europe, but the private lives of royal women in profound ways. Number 8 on our list is Louise of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, Queen of Prussia, a woman admired for her beauty, intelligence, and charm. Born in 1776 into a tightly intermarried German noble family, Louise's life was shaped by centuries of carefully arranged royal unions. These marriages were meant to preserve bloodlines, consolidate power, and secure political alliances, but they often carried hidden consequences for health and well-being. Louise married King Frederick William III of Prussia, becoming a beloved queen and symbol of resilience during turbulent times, including the Napoleonic Wars. Yet beneath her public grace lay the subtle burdens of her ancestry. Generations of close familial marriages had quietly influenced her children and the wider royal lineage. Her life serves as a reminder that even the most celebrated royal women were shaped not only by their own choices, but by the careful, sometimes perilous planning of generations before them. Louise's story is one of dignity and strength, set against the backdrop of a legacy that was as powerful as it was inescapable. Number 9 on our list is Charlotte of Spain, a princess whose life was shaped by both royal privilege and the hidden burdens of her lineage. Born in 1775 to Charles IV of Spain, Charlotte was part of a family where generations of close marriages were arranged to preserve the purity of royal blood. She later married King John VI of Portugal, a union that linked Spanish and Portuguese royal lines and reinforced political alliances across the Iberian Peninsula. While these marriages strengthened dynasties, they also carried subtle consequences. The tightly interwoven bloodlines of European royalty often affected health, fertility, and the well-being of children, leaving quiet marks that history seldom records. Despite these challenges, Charlotte fulfilled her role with poise and dedication, navigating the pressures of court life and political expectations. Her story reminds us that behind every crown and public duty, royal women often bore the weight of ancestry and family tradition, forces that shaped their lives in ways both visible and invisible. Number 10 on our list is Maria Carolina of Austria, a Habsburg princess whose life reflects the intricate web of European royal bloodlines. Born in 1752 to Empress Maria Theresa, Maria Carolina was part of a family known for carefully arranged marriages intended to maintain power and influence across the continent. She married Ferdinand I of Naples, a union that strengthened political alliances between Austria and Naples. Like many royal marriages of the time, it was not only a matter of duty, but also a continuation of closely interwoven family lines. These repeated unions often brought hidden consequences, subtly influencing the health and well-being of children, and shaping the fates of entire dynasties. Maria Carolina was politically active and influential, especially in Neapolitan court affairs, demonstrating intelligence, determination, and resilience. Yet, her life was also quietly marked by the legacy of generations of inbreeding, a reminder that even the most powerful and celebrated royal women were shaped not only by their own choices, but by centuries of family tradition. Number 11 on our list is Caroline of Brunswick, a princess whose life was marked by both privilege and hardship. Born in 1768 into the House of Brunswick, Caroline grew up within a tightly connected European nobility, where marriages between cousins and close relatives were common to preserve power and influence. She married her cousin, the future King George IV of the United Kingdom, in a union intended to strengthen dynastic ties. However, their marriage was famously unhappy, reflecting not only personal incompatibility, but also the pressures and expectations imposed by royal bloodlines. Caroline faced isolation, public scrutiny, and political intrigue, living much of her life under the shadow of the crown. Behind the pomp and ceremony, Caroline's story also reveals the quiet legacy of inbreeding. Close family unions had long been a tool to consolidate power, but they often carried hidden consequences, affecting health, temperament, and the dynamics of royal households. Caroline's life reminds us that even as queens and princesses navigated grandeur and influence, they were shaped by the invisible weight of generations that came before them. Number 12 on our list is Maria Isabella of Spain, a princess whose life was shaped by both duty and the hidden burdens of her ancestry. Born in 1789 to Charles IV of Spain, she grew up in a royal family where generations of intermarriage were common, aimed at preserving the purity and influence of the royal bloodline. Maria Isabella later married Francis I of the Two Sicilies, a union that strengthened ties between the Spanish and Italian crowns. While politically important, these closely connected marriages carried subtle consequences for health and well-being, as the effects of generations of inbreeding quietly manifested in royal households. Throughout her life, Maria Isabella fulfilled her role as queen and mother, navigating the pressures of court life with dignity. Yet, like many royal women, she bore the legacy of her family's bloodlines, a legacy that shaped not only her life but also the lives of her children, illustrating how power, duty, and ancestry were deeply intertwined in European royalty. Number 13 on our list is Augusta of Saxe-Gotha, a princess whose life quietly reflects the legacy of European royal intermarriage. Born in 1719 in Germany, Augusta was raised in a noble family where marriages between cousins and close relatives were common, carefully arranged to preserve power, alliances, and the so-called purity of royal blood. She married Frederick, Prince of Wales, becoming the mother of the future King George III of Great Britain. Her marriage, like many royal unions, was as much about politics and dynastic strategy as it was about personal connection. The close family ties in her ancestry brought subtle, hidden consequences, influencing the health and temperament of her descendants, including the king himself. Throughout her life, Augusta maintained her role with grace and dignity, navigating the expectations of court life while raising a family whose bloodlines were carefully entwined with Europe's most powerful houses. Her story reminds us that behind the grandeur of royalty, generations of carefully arranged marriages quietly shaped the lives of women, their children, and the course of history itself. Number 14 on our list is Elisabeth of Bavaria, better known as Empress Sophie of Austria, a woman whose life combined elegance, intellect, and the quiet burdens of royal ancestry. Born in 1837 into the Bavarian royal family, Elisabeth was part of a network of European nobility, where marriages were carefully arranged, often between cousins and other close relatives, to preserve dynastic influence. She married Emperor Franz Joseph I of Austria, becoming one of the most famous empresses in European history. While admired for her beauty and charisma, Elisabeth faced immense personal pressures. Generations of closely related ancestors had left their mark, subtly affecting her health, as well as that of her children and extended family. Elisabeth's life was both public and intensely private. She traveled extensively, sought freedom from court constraints, and struggled with the expectations imposed upon her as a Habsburg empress. Her story reminds us that behind every crown and celebrated life, royal women often carried invisible burdens, shaped by ancestry, duty, and the carefully controlled bloodlines of generations past. Number 15 on our list is Victoria of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld, a woman whose life exemplifies the careful planning and hidden consequences of royal bloodlines. Born in 1786 in Germany, Victoria was raised in a family where marriages between cousins and close relatives were common, intended to preserve influence and secure alliances across European courts. She later became the mother of Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom, shaping a lineage that would dominate European royalty for generations. Her own ancestry, tightly interwoven with German and British nobility, carried the subtle effects of generations of intermarriage, impacting health, temperament, and even the dynamics of the household she joined. Throughout her life, Victoria navigated her duties as a mother, a widow, and a member of a powerful dynasty with grace and resilience. Her story reminds us that royal women were not only defined by titles and ceremonies, but also by the quiet legacy of ancestry, decisions and unions made long before their time that would shape the course of history. Number 16 on our list is Louise of Prussia, a queen whose life reflected both the prestige and hidden burdens of European royal ancestry. Born in 1770, Louise was raised within a tightly connected German noble family, where marriages between cousins and other relatives were common, carefully arranged to preserve influence, power, and dynastic continuity. She married King Frederick William III of Prussia, becoming a beloved queen admired for her charm, intelligence, and courage, especially during the tumultuous times of the Napoleonic Wars. Yet, beneath her public persona, the legacy of generations of close familial unions quietly influenced her health and that of her children, as well as the dynamics of her royal household. Louise's life reminds us that even the most celebrated royal women were shaped not only by their own actions, but by the careful planning and bloodlines of ancestors. Her story illustrates how royal heritage could be both a privilege and a subtle, sometimes hidden, burden, one that left its mark on history in ways few would see at the time. Number 17 on our list is Marie Antoinette, perhaps one of the most famous royal women in history. Born in 1755 as an Archduchess of Austria, she was the 15th child of Empress Maria Theresa and Francis I, Holy Roman Emperor. From birth, her life was shaped by generations of closely intermarried European royalty, where marriages were arranged to consolidate power and maintain pure royal blood. At just 14, she married Louis XVI of France, a union designed to strengthen ties between Austria and France. While politically advantageous, these close family connections carried hidden consequences, subtly affecting health and temperament across generations. Marie Antoinette would face enormous pressures, navigating the opulence of Versailles while the tides of revolution began to rise around her. Her life, full of privilege and scrutiny, reflects the hidden legacy of royal inbreeding. Beneath the dresses, jewels, and public ceremonies, there lay centuries of carefully arranged marriages whose effects rippled through her life and the lives of her children. Marie Antoinette's story reminds us that even the most iconic royal women were bound by ancestry as much as by duty. Number 18 on our list is Charlotte of Belgium, a princess whose life was shaped by both royal privilege and the quiet burdens of ancestry. Born in 1840 to King Leopold I of Belgium and Louise of Orleans, Charlotte came from a lineage where close marriages between cousins and other relatives were common, intended to maintain power and alliances across Europe. Charlotte later became Empress of Mexico through her marriage to Emperor Maximilian I. While this union elevated her status, it also placed her in a position of immense political and personal pressure. Generations of intermarried ancestors had left subtle marks on her health and resilience, influencing both her physical and mental well-being. Her life was marked by triumphs and tragedies, from her early years as a celebrated princess to her later struggles with mental illness following the fall of the Mexican Empire. Charlotte's story reminds us that royal women often carried the invisible weight of family bloodlines, a legacy that shaped their destinies as much as the crowns they wore. Number 19 on our list is Alexandra of Denmark, a queen whose life combined elegance, duty, and the quiet influence of ancestry. Born in 1844 to King Christian IX of Denmark and Louise of Hesse-Kassel, Alexandra grew up in a royal family where marriages between cousins and other close relatives were common, designed to secure alliances and preserve dynastic power. She married Edward VII of the United Kingdom, becoming queen consort and a beloved figure in British society. Yet behind the crowns and public duties, the legacy of generations of intermarriage quietly shaped her family. The carefully intertwined bloodlines of European royalty brought subtle health challenges and influenced the lives of her children and descendants. Throughout her life, Alexandra navigated her roles with grace and intelligence, offering support to her husband and maintaining strong connections across European courts. Her story reminds us that even the most admired royal women were shaped by the careful planning of ancestors, carrying both the privilege and hidden burdens of royal heritage. Number 20 on our list is Isabella II of Spain, a queen whose life was deeply shaped by the royal bloodlines that surrounded her. Born in 1830 to King Ferdinand VII and Maria Cristina of the Two Sicilies, Isabella inherited a lineage where intermarriage between cousins and other relatives was common, a practice intended to preserve dynastic power, but one that often carried hidden consequences. From a young age, Isabella was thrust into the complexities of ruling Spain. Her marriages and family connections reflected generations of carefully arranged unions, which influenced not only political alliances, but also the health and temperament of her children and descendants. Throughout her reign, she faced challenges both personal and political, including revolts, court intrigues, and public scrutiny. Isabella II's story reminds us that royal women often bore the weight of ancestry as heavily as the weight of their crowns. Behind every decision, every duty, and every public appearance, there was the quiet legacy of generations of interwoven family bloodlines, shaping destinies in ways history often overlooks. Number 21 on our list is Marie-Louise of Austria, a princess whose life reflected both the prestige and hidden burdens of royal bloodlines. Born in 1791 as the daughter of Francis II, Holy Roman Emperor, she grew up in the heart of the Habsburg dynasty, where generations of intermarriage were common to maintain influence, wealth, and what they considered pure royal blood. Marie-Louise is perhaps best known as the second wife of Napoleon Bonaparte, an arranged union designed to strengthen political alliances between France and Austria. While the marriage elevated her to the position of Empress of the French, it also placed her in a world of intense public scrutiny and personal challenges. Generations of tightly interwoven family lines quietly influenced her health and the health of her child, reflecting the hidden consequences of royal inbreeding. Despite the pressures of empire, Marie-Louise carried out her duties with dignity and grace. Her story is a reminder that behind the titles and public appearances, royal women often bore the subtle, invisible weight of ancestry, a weight that shaped their lives, their families, and the course of history itself. Number 22 on our list is Princess Charlotte of Wales, a young royal whose life was both promising and tragically short. Born in 1796 to George IV, then Prince of Wales, and Caroline of Brunswick, Charlotte was the only legitimate grandchild of King George III. Her family was tightly intermarried, as was common among European royalty, to preserve dynastic power and influence. Charlotte's life was carefully managed from birth. She was engaged to marry Prince William of Orange, a union intended to strengthen European alliances. But her health, likely influenced by generations of close family marriages, was fragile. Tragically, she died at just 21 after childbirth, a loss that sent shockwaves through the British monarchy and altered the line of succession. Her brief life reminds us that even young royal women, admired and celebrated, were shaped by the invisible legacy of ancestry. Generations of arranged unions, designed to consolidate power, quietly influenced health and destiny, leaving their mark in ways both profound and heartbreaking. Number 23 on our list is Elisabeth of Austria, famously known as Empress Sissi. Born in 1837 to Duke Maximilian Joseph in Bavaria and Princess Ludovica of Bavaria, Elisabeth grew up in a tightly intermarried royal network, where marriages between cousins and close relatives were common to preserve alliances and the influence of dynasties. At the age of 16, she married Emperor Franz Joseph I of Austria, becoming one of the most celebrated empresses in European history. While admired for her beauty, intelligence, and independence, Elisabeth faced immense personal pressures. The tightly woven family lines she came from carried subtle effects on health and temperament, influencing not only her own life, but that of her children and extended family. Elisabeth's life was marked by travel, strict court etiquette, and private struggles with grief and depression. Behind the glamour of crowns and palaces, she bore the quiet legacy of royal intermarriage, a legacy that shaped her experiences and reminds us that even the most iconic royal women carried the weight of ancestry alongside the weight of empire. Number 24 on our list is Maria Cristina of Naples and Sicily, a queen whose life was shaped by the hidden legacy of European royal bloodlines. Born in 1779 to Ferdinand I of the Two Sicilies and Maria Carolina of Austria, she belonged to a family where marriages between cousins and close relatives were common, designed to preserve dynastic power and consolidate alliances. Maria Cristina married Ferdinand VII of Spain, a union that strengthened ties between Spain and Naples. While politically significant, these close family connections also carried the subtle consequences of generations of intermarriage, influencing the health and resilience of both her children and descendants. Throughout her life, Maria Cristina navigated the challenges of court life with grace and determination. Her story reminds us that behind every crown and formal duty, royal women often bore the invisible weight of ancestry, a legacy that quietly shaped their destinies, their families, and in some cases, the course of entire nations. Number 25 on our list is Sophie of Bavaria, a princess whose life illustrates both the prestige and hidden burdens of European royal ancestry. Born in 1805 to King Maximilian I Joseph of Bavaria and Caroline of Baden, Sophie grew up in a world where marriages between cousins and close relatives were common, carefully arranged to preserve power, influence, and what was considered pure royal blood. She married Archduke Franz Karl of Austria, becoming the mother of Emperor Franz Joseph I and Emperor Maximilian I of Mexico. Through her children, the legacy of tightly interwoven royal bloodlines continued, carrying both the privileges and subtle consequences of generations of inbreeding. Sophie was politically astute and deeply involved in her family's affairs, guiding her children through the complex web of European royalty. Her story reminds us that even behind elegance and influence, royal women often bore the invisible weight of ancestry, a weight that shaped their lives, their families, and the destinies of the empires they helped govern. Number 26 on our list is Princess Alice of the United Kingdom, the second daughter of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. Born in 1843, Alice grew up in a family where intermarriage among European royalty was common, intended to strengthen alliances and preserve dynastic influence. Alice married Louis IV, Grand Duke of Hesse, a union that linked the British and German royal lines. While the marriage was politically and socially strategic, the legacy of close familial bloodlines carried subtle consequences, affecting the health of Alice and her children. Tragically, several of her offspring suffered from illnesses inherited through these interconnections, highlighting the quiet but real impact of generations of arranged royal unions. Despite these challenges, Princess Alice was devoted to her family and deeply engaged in charitable work, showing compassion and resilience. Her life reminds us that even as royal women carried the prestige of their titles, they were shaped by the invisible burdens of ancestry, burdens that influenced both personal lives and the course of dynasties. Number 27 on our list is Maria Amalia of Naples and Sicily, a queen whose life was quietly shaped by generations of royal intermarriage. Born in 1782 to Ferdinand I of the Two Sicilies and Maria Carolina of Austria, Maria Amalia grew up in a family where marriages between cousins and close relatives were common, intended to maintain dynastic power and consolidate alliances across Europe. She married Ferdinand I of Saxony, linking two powerful royal houses. While this union strengthened political and familial ties, it also carried the subtle consequences of inbreeding, which sometimes affected the health and resilience of her children and descendants. Throughout her life, Maria Amalia navigated the expectations of court life with dignity, balancing her roles as queen, wife, and mother. Her story reminds us that even the most influential royal women often bore the invisible weight of ancestry, a legacy that shaped their lives, their families, and the fortunes of the nations they served. Number 28 on our list is Alexandra Feodorovna of Russia, the last empress of the Romanovs, whose life was deeply intertwined with the legacy of European royal intermarriage. Born in 1872 as Princess Alex of Hesse, she was a granddaughter of Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom, inheriting the tightly interwoven bloodlines of the European nobility. She married Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, a union that placed her at the center of one of the most powerful, and ultimately tragic, dynasties in European history. Generations of close familial marriages had left their mark, subtly influencing the health and resilience of Alexandra and her children. The effects of this ancestry were most famously seen in her son, the heir Alexei, who suffered from hemophilia, a genetic condition inherited through Queen Victoria's lineage. Despite her position, Alexandra's life was filled with personal and political struggles. Her story reminds us that even the most elevated royal women were not immune to the quiet, invisible influence of ancestry, a legacy that shaped their lives, their families, and the fate of entire empires. Number 29 on our list is Victoria Eugenie of Battenberg, a princess whose life was shaped by both royal privilege and the hidden consequences of ancestry. Born in 1887, she was a granddaughter of Queen Victoria, inheriting a lineage marked by generations of intermarriage among European royals. Victoria Eugenie married King Alfonso XIII of Spain, a union that brought her into the heart of Spanish royalty. While politically significant, her ancestry carried genetic consequences that would quietly affect her family. Most notably, she was a carrier of hemophilia, a disease passed down from Queen Victoria, which appeared in several of her children. This condition became a lasting, though often hidden, legacy of royal inbreeding. Throughout her life, Victoria Eugenie fulfilled her royal duties with dignity, navigating both public expectations and private challenges. Her story reminds us that even celebrated royal women were shaped by generations of ancestry, by choices and marriages made long before they were born, and that these hidden legacies could influence the course of entire dynasties. Number 30 on our list is Louise of Mecklenburg-Schwerin, Queen of Prussia, whose life reflects both the prestige and quiet burdens of European royal ancestry. Born in 1778, Louise grew up in a family where marriages between cousins and close relatives were common, carefully arranged to preserve dynastic influence, wealth, and what was considered pure royal blood. She married King Frederick William III of Prussia, becoming a beloved queen admired for her beauty, intelligence, and grace. Yet, behind the crowns and public ceremonies, generations of intermarried ancestors left subtle marks on health, temperament, and the dynamics of her royal household. Louise's life, though celebrated, was intertwined with the hidden legacy of ancestry that quietly shaped her experiences and those of her children. Her story reminds us that even the most admired royal women were bound by the invisible weight of their lineage. Behind every crown, every court, and every duty lay the lasting influence of generations of carefully arranged marriages, a legacy that shaped not just lives but the course of history itself.